robots took my podcast.
Alexander Salkind presents Christopher Reeve and Richard Pryor.
Watch the trees.
As you've never seen them before. With more action, more twists.
You're going to go down in history as the man who killed Superman.
No. And more fun.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Than Superman has ever had before. Superman 3.
Welcome to our podcast, The Robots Took My Podcast. I am Anthony, and with me, as always, is my podcast companion, Jordan.
Hello, Anthony, my partner in crime.
Hello, Jordan. Okay, so we have a recurring, what do you call it? Recurring
series.
Thank you. So we have a recurring series where we talk about the third film in a franchise, our Threequel series.
The odd Threequel.
Yeah. The third film in a franchise, and previously we talked about Karate Kid 3. And now we're back at it again, Jordan. What film are we talking about this week?
Superman 3 from 1983, yes. Starring Christopher Reeve, Richard Pryor. And just to preface a little with this movie, I mean,
preface away.
How we got to Superman 3 was we had Superman the movie come out in 1978, and we had Superman 2 come out in America in 1981. And Richard Donner, yes, had been fired from the first movie, and then they brought on Richard Lester to finish the first movie. Really, actually, to finish the second movie more, because apparently by Directors Guild rules, you have to have shot 80% of the movie to have your name on the credit. And so Richard Lester did reshoot a lot of stuff Donner had done for Superman 2, because Superman 2 and 1, fun fact, were shot back to back. And they later chopped it up into two movies, basically. So the Alexander and Elias Salkind, who produced these movies back then, up to 3, they produced them. They hired Lester again to do Superman 3. Now, this time, Lester had full reign compared to 2, meaning this was all Richard Lester directed compared to the situation with 2 and 1.
And it shows. It definitely shows.
There's a lot more. It's more of a comic book, to the point where it's like a comic strip, and it's also comedy, a lot of comedy.
Well, I wasn't laughing that much at all, Jordan, but I've read it. I've read it's a comedy, or it was meant to be.
They definitely went more camp in this one compared to the first two movies. But now something that younger people, when they watch this nowadays, will completely not realize is that back then in 1983, we were not in a world dominated by superhero movies. Superman dominated the box office, basically, for a while. And by the point we were at 3, still, it was the same thing. Marvel, though, was not even in the cinemas hardly at all. But that was it, folks. Marvel was more restricted to television and cartoons. On TV, you could see Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends every Saturday morning. And that was where Marvel was, basically. It was not in the theater like it is now. And it wasn't we wouldn't have a Michael Keaton Batman for another 6 years, folks. But Superman 3, with all the criticism we're about to give about it, did hold its own the same summer with another little movie called Return of the Jedi.
A lot of parallels between
a lot of parallels.
These two films. I personally think that Superman 2 is the Empire Strikes Back of this series. You know what I mean? Agreed. Especially the Donner cut.
Oh yeah, there's so much.
It's the strongest, in my opinion.
I think Superman 2 is really awesome because it's really where the action just starts to pick up. You know, we've already gotten the origin story in the first movie. Superman 2 is kind of hard to top, I think, at the same time, maybe.
Well, you take it in a different direction, and I can see where they were going with this. Richard Pryor, a famous comedian, and I mean, needs no introduction.
Very talented Richard Pryor. Love Richard Pryor.
He was at the height of his film career at this point.
Absolutely.
And I know a lot of people, I mean, I'm not quite the Superman fan that you are, you know, love the franchise and all that, but from what the little I understand about the making of Superman 2 is Donner's firing pissed off a lot of people, especially the actors. right?
Yeah, I was going to get to that too. Actually, you
Margot
go ahead though
Kidder.
and talk. Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
correct me if I'm
Specifically
wrong.
Margot Kidder.
Specifically Margot Kidder. And so she didn't want to come back. And so they brought her back because they kind of needed her, right? And
she said in an interview, I think we'd all by the time she was on 2, she said we'd all formed opinions.
And I know that, Gene Hackman didn't want to come back. Obviously, he can't have Lex Luthor in every movie, I guess, but there was some abrasion there, maybe. And especially with Christopher Reeve,
Yeah.
Also, it just left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth, I think. And so there was a lot of money thrown around to really entice everyone to come back.
When the movie opens, we're in a Richard Pryor movie, folks. In fact, we forget we're even watching a Superman movie at the beginning of the movie. You sit down, you're watching Superman 3, and then you turn it on, and then what's going on? Yeah,
we walk it. It's funny because we get several movies, different types of movies in the beginning, the first 5-10 minutes. And Gus Gorman is Richard Pryor's character. He's a guy who's down on his luck. He's in the unemployment line, and he just can't keep a job, and he's sitting there talking to the lady at the unemployment office, and she's just giving him a bunch of sass. But I was just kind of like, this is the Metropolis unemployment line. What does the Gotham City unemployment line look like? I bet it's just like nothing but future villains. It's a lot darker. I don't know. Dumb thought.
And plus, that's a small line for being a big city, right?
Yeah. He just walks right up.
Which it kind of is. It kind of is like there's only about 10 people in the line. When you wait in line in anything in a government big city, even when you're trying to pay a traffic ticket, it's usually a longer line than that. It's usually snaking.
Yeah, exactly. But this is, and you're reminded this is the early 80s because people are still smoking indoors, and this whole movie is kicked off by the fact that Richard Pryor asked for a matchbook from this one dude, and it has this ad on there for like being a computer programmer. So he's down his luck. He's rejected. He can't get a job, so he's like, I'm gonna go become a computer programmer. And then we get a series of distracting titles that are flying over the action. Yeah. It
kind of slightly reminds us we're in a Superman movie again, but yet still we have all this Hard Day's Night Part 2 stuff going on. All these antics in the city happening
all
at once. And I say Hard Day's Night because the director Richard Lester also directed the Beatles starred film A Hard Day's Night, which basically that's the whole beginning of the movie. And they ripped the same thing off in Trainspotting later on, the Ewan McGregor 1995 movie, I think 1996 movie. But it's and you're still kind of baffled by this title sequence and wondering if you're in a Superman movie.
You're wondering,
then finally
you're wondering
something happens.
But let's talk a bit about this opening non sequitur series of really
sight gags, right?
It's like a Harold Lloyd or Buster Keaton movie. It's that level of shenanigans, like you said, slapstick. It's just really, it just falls flat for like modern sensibilities, even in the 80s, I guess. I cannot.
It doesn't work. I agree, though.
These jokes are not funny. It's just like it's setting up a series of gags, and you're like, why am I watching this? It goes on for like 7 minutes. I timed it because I was like, when, and not one, but several different sequences like this. All the worst and unfunniest crap from the Lester cut of Superman 2. Now we just indulge in it for far too long.
It's piled on.
And it doesn't fit with everything else, and it sets it gives you a weird taste in your mouth for the rest of this movie. Like, for example, Superman picks up a flaming penguin toy that's walking and blows it out at one point and then sets it down and walks away. That's the level of wackiness that we're talking about. We shouldn't even
And
mean,
that's how we first see Clark Kent in this movie too, is him walking by. And that's when we're like, oh, is that finally we see Clark Kent? Oh, wait, where's he going? Wait, oh, he just blew it out, walked away. Okay. Okay, bye.
And then there's a guy for reasons that is like drowning in a car. He, hits because of all of this
fire hydrant
series of wackiness ensues, and he hits a fire hydrant and his car's filling up, like that would ever happen. And he has like a sunroof that is just one of those, I don't know, what tarp or it's a flimsy material he could easily punch out himself.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not the point, because Superman has to save this guy in the worst
that car didn't
Superman
look very
save
American,
ever.
did it?
What?
That car didn't look very American either, did it?
No, it's not an American car. Not in my Superman movie. It was a Volvo or something. Anyway.
I think this was all shot in like downtown Alberta, Canada, as well, which doesn't look like a New York metropolitan really city area, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too critical here.
That's after all the stupidness we just watched. And then
no,
Superman,
like what's that they say on Mystery Science Theater? They're on a collision course to wackiness.
No, they're on a collision course to something, but it's not wackiness, Jordan. So Superman, we realize, cannot save somebody unless he's in his suit. He cannot do anything unless he's in his suit in this film, right?
So he's got to change.
He's got to change. So he changes and saves the guy.
Can we talk about how he changes? He changes in a photo booth.
Yes.
Like where like photos snap of you, and it almost reveals his identity. And he grabs the photos that the little boy's about to take and gives him the one of just Superman, not Clark. And fun fact, that little boy was the little boy that played him young in the first movie, actually.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. Fun fact. Anyway. So then where are we? After this, we're in Gus Gorman is taking a computer class.
Then we find out that Richard Pryor gets a job at some company, right? And then he's like an accidental computer genius. He's just like, whoops, what did I just do? I'm a computer genius. Like, that's just an inherent talent people can have. He's a savant, right? And the movie doesn't earn this. It just establishes it like, whoops, computer buttons. I'm a genius. Wow. And
he's like, oh, I did something right. Oh, I did something wrong. Ooh.
So, and then we go to the Daily Planet, and a lot of wackiness is happening here, but basically.
Oh yeah. Let me, I got to interrupt here.
Yeah, go for it.
When we go to the Daily Planet, they open with stock footage from the first movie. I have a problem with this already.
What?
The exterior shot is from the first movie of the Daily Planet. It's from the very first movie. The first movie came out in 1978. This movie's in 1983. The styles of the extras in the streets are different in this footage from the first movie. And if you've watched this, if you're a big Superman Christopher Reeve fan like I am, and you watched all four of these movies so many times, you realize that's from the first movie. So it kind of, I'm sorry, it just threw me off a bit watching it again. I was just like, that's from the first damn movie. What? Why can't they just
afros and leisure suits and
pretty
polyester suits? Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, they're all walking around polyester suits. So yeah, is what I'm saying. Anyway, we're at the Daily Planet, though. Yes, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. Because it's more interesting than what happens at the Daily Planet. So first thing, we have to get rid of Margot Kidder, right?
Oh yeah,
the Salkins are like
where it comes all in, right?
Yeah,
here
the Salkins are like, well. We're just going to write you out of this movie. By the way, I mean, your whole romantic subplot with Superman was resolved in the second movie, so we don't need your ass. So bye.
So they basically pull a Charlton Heston Beneath the Planet of the Apes on her. They introduce her right then, and then she doesn't come back till the end of the movie, basically.
They write her off like a bad sitcom. She's going to Bermuda.
Boy, do they. And you could, I mean, this is clearly because of her opinion with the Salkinds firing Donner. This is clearly, I mean, what happened, obviously, why she's barely in this movie and why she's not the love interest. I they said publicly too that, we did the Lois Lane Superman thing already in the last movie. And yeah, that's sure. That makes sense. But, yeah.
Margot Kidder was a big draw for these movies, and they could have found some way, but anyway, so basically Clark Kent has a we, of course, see the great Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent, obviously.
Yeah.
And Mark McClure's Jimmy Olsen. And we have just a silly setup where, Clark has an idea to go to his high school reunion, right? So
yeah, he pitches it to Perry White that he's gonna write about what it's like for a big city guy to go back to his small town high school reunion. And Perry White's like, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, he kind of barely is. It's almost like he's barely there, right, in this scene.
Yeah.
I mean, when it's like Perry White's barely paying attention to Clark.
They've got some stupid lottery for a vacation going on. All this is really contrived and bizarre. So anyway,
you're just kind of like, what movie are we in again? Is this like, is this a weird dream that Clark had before he went to work?
Yeah, and he doesn't even notice Clark. Literally, he doesn't. Is like, bye, and he's like, oh yeah, bye. See ya.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, I'll see you, Chief. And even there's a joke there, of course. Perry White says, well, I'm gonna miss having my best reporter. Gonna miss you, Lois. And then ha ha ha.
Whap, whap.
Yeah. And then when he's leaving, he's like, okay, we'll see you. Okay, bye, Kent.
Yeah, it's not very funny, Jordan.
And then he takes Jimmy Olsen with him.
I'm
sorry, I'm probably skipping ahead a bit. Yeah.
On a bus. Like they're working for a newspaper. They got to take a bus to Smallville. And okay.
Why too is Jimmy Olsen going to go with him to photograph this occasion? How, doesn't Jimmy Olsen even have better shit to do?
Apparently not. There's just nothing going on in Metropolis this week. There's just zero things happening. And we've really got to go to a small town and cover a high school reunion. But let me start a nitpicking, Jordan. Number one. Okay.
Oh, yes.
This high school reunion is 1965. That makes it an 18-year reunion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or does this take place in another year other than 1983? Number two.
We're skipping ahead a bit, but yeah, if you want to skip ahead to the high school reunion, I do have some notes on that high school reunion as well.
Oh, yeah. Actually. Hold on. Let me bring that up later because we have a bunch of shit with the chemical factory, don't we? Okay. Anyway. So then
go back to Jimmy and Clark are on a bus on their way to Smallville because apparently Jimmy Olsen's going to photograph the whole thing for him somehow.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And then in a very Superman movie-esque way, a chemical plant is just on fire, Jordan. And then what happens? What happens?
Well, Jimmy decides he's going to get out and take photos and get up way close to this shit. It looks really fucking dangerous. And Clark is like, well, Jimmy, that looks dangerous. Jimmy just decides he's going to be gung-ho anyway. He's got balls of steel all of a sudden. He goes out there. Clark sneaks off after him. The bus has stopped, by the way, because there's traffic because of this whole chemical accident and all the fire. And oddly, too, the sheriff that talks to the bus driver is the same actor from 2 that worked at NASA. It's like they have the same stock company of American actors over in England that are in these movies.
Yeah.
John Ratzenberger being another one of them.
Yeah. But, there's also a fire truck trying to put out a chemical fire. And I don't know much about chemicals but I'm just like, is that the best? Maybe that is the way it's done. I don't know. But how does Superman solve this pickle? How does he put the chemical plant fire out, Jordan?
He flies to a nearby lake and freezes the top into a glacier, I guess. Is that the right word?
Well, he flies to a big
sheet of ice.
He flies to a studio backlot lake and that we've seen in many films.
It's probably I think it's the same lake at the back of Shepperton Studios or something like that. I think that's the same lake from there, actually. Possibly, yeah. Or maybe it is the lake at Warner Brothers, actually.
It might be the lake at Warner Brothers because I've seen it in so many films.
The Tarzan lake you see in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And all that. Yeah.
And then he freezes it and then carries the frozen lake water.
Yeah. The whole lake
frozen somehow has the integrity that one can just pick up a corner of it and fly it to the fire and then drops it on the fire and it just rains.
Yeah, he makes rain. Yeah.
He makes it rain.
And one of the firemen says, "That man is a miracle."
And it's a weird, it's just weird. I don't know. It
But
works.
it's
a
the
Superman
most-
movie, suspension of disbelief.
Yeah. But it's like it's one of the only parts though that feels the most like a Superman movie in this whole movie, you know?
Yeah.
Because once again, this movie is more of a Richard Pryor movie. And it's not Richard Pryor's fault either. I don't blame him. I blame Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Apparently this was Terry Semel, the guy who ran Warner Brothers' idea to put Richard Pryor in a Superman movie, thinking two big box office guns in the same movie. And yeah, Richard Pryor was as we said, he was box office gold back then. He was a very high paid actor back then. I'm sure he might've made more money than Christopher Reeve on this movie for all I know.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I think Christopher Reeve
he
got
might've
paid
got a
$1
sweeter
million.
deal.
And I think if I could, these numbers could be totally wrong, but I think Richard Pryor got 5 or something.
I'd believe it. I mean, he was paid like $1 or $2 million to do Stir Crazy already before that.
And then he got a $40 million 5-picture deal after this. So, I mean, yeah.
Did he really?
Or 6-picture deal. Yeah. Yeah. This was yeah. Good.
Talk
He
about
was
box
doing all
office
right.
heat.
Doing all right for himself. But yeah, this is the moment that feels like a Superman movie. You can't hate on it. It's what it is. It's not bad.
I was going to say too that, Richard Pryor got the part in this movie because he was on Johnny Carson a year or two before. And Johnny Carson, asked him what he was doing lately. And he went into, "I saw Superman 2, man. Have you seen that movie? That is an awesome movie." And he started going on and on about Superman 2 and how great it was. And apparently the Salkinds saw this on television and were like, that was another impetus for them to put him in the movie was, oh, he loves Superman, clearly. And he came on to this movie. He didn't want to improvise. He just wanted to be a part of the show, really, from what I understand. He didn't want to be Richard Pryor on this movie, actually. To his credit, once again, he knew what he was getting into. He knew his own limits. This is not his fault. I feel like it's kind of a diss to him too, a bit. Kind of an insult to him in a way, this movie, of his abilities.
Well, yeah, this movie's a comedy of errors in a lot of ways and an error in comedy in more ways. But let's get back to the movie real quick, because we enter here like what I think is the most interesting part of this film. And that is when Clark Kent goes back to his high school reunion. Right.
Oh, yes.
This felt like a movie. Actually felt like a movie for a minute,
For a little bit. Although I have some criticisms about the high school reunion.
How dare you, Jordan? Like what?
I have some notes on the high school reunion. Did everybody age really fast after they went to this Smallville high school?
Well,
because all these people look like, like you said, 1965.
No, I haven't said that yet. I haven't said that yet.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Let me start over. Because all these people look like they're almost 40 already. And it's clearly only like, what? Is it like 10 years after? Has it been 10 years since Clark's been to high school?
It's the class of 1965. First off, this is 1983, presumably, when this movie takes place. So that's the 18-year reunion, which is an odd number. And I mean, you'd have to be at least 36 years old, right? If you graduated in 65. And I mean, the cast members are not that old. For example, Christopher Reeve was maybe he was 31 at the time, 30. So
I wasn't talking specifically him or even Annette O'Toole. I was talking just mostly the extras you see in the background.
Oh, totally. I don't know why they picked 1965. Yeah, he should have been out. I mean, has he been out of high school 18 years? I don't know. Just pick another date. But I guess it's just an excuse.
And I'm sorry, I don't know where they filmed this.
I don't know.
Earth Angel is appropriate. Yes, absolutely. And that's a nice. Although when they get into the high school, we hear Roll Over Beethoven, and it's almost like they could only afford Earth Angel later on, but they couldn't afford the actual Roll Over Beethoven. So
these are not
a cheap British knockoff of it.
And we do meet Annette O'Toole, who plays Lana Lang.
Yes, Superman's the lovely Annette O'Toole.
Sweet. Oh, she is indeed lovely. And she's just really good in this role. And
she is very good. Absolutely. She's a great actress.
Superman's sweetheart, and played Martha Kent in Smallville years later.
She did enough. She did more DC after that. So after this movie,
yeah.
And then we also meet Brad. Brad,
generic
played by
name.
the great Gavin O'Herlihy, son of the actor Dan O'Herlihy. Y'all out there might recognize him from as Eric in the movie Willow. He was also the lost cousin from Happy Days.
Oh wow!
And he was also in Lonesome Dove, the TV movie Lonesome Dove, among many other things he was in. I mean, he was in a lot of stuff. Yeah. Great actor too.
Great actor, but
plays a perfect jerk here.
Yeah, in this movie, he plays a drunk asshole who, for some reason, is both chewing gum and drinking beer when he shows up at this high school reunion to cause trouble.
I don't get that whole thing. But you'd see Burt Reynolds doing it in a movie too. I don't get it. I never understood the whole chewing gum and drinking beer thing. I love beer, but I don't like chewing gum with my beer. What the fuck?
I know, minty beer.
What's wrong with these people?
I don't know. So they rekindle their romance, and Brad's a jerk and stuff. But I do like, I do think it's interesting, and the movie could have slowed down and spent some time here, and it kind of does. With Lana, who has aspirations of moving to Metropolis and getting out of this small town. It just feels like the most real
I agree on that part
in
of the
this movie or moments.
Yeah. I agree on that part of the movie. It does feel that's where there's a nice chemistry between Christopher Reeve and Annette O'Toole in these scenes. Even though you kind of wonder sometimes though the way they're communicating, like, are they really communicating? Are they really having a conversation? Because the way they finish each other's sentences or whatever. And anyway, but no, you're right though. Out of all the other weird stuff in this movie, this does feel like more like the Superman that we're wanting, and the Superman movie we're wanting here.
Yeah,
feels like it more in this movie.
The emotional core that we had before between Lois and Clark, and it's I don't know. It just feels like a movie for a minute. I don't know.
And I joke about Brad, but the Brad character at least is interesting. I think that all the stuff with him in there with Clark and Lana is interesting too. I think because it does show like how time has changed, and we saw Brad in the very first movie, saying, "Kid can't make it. Still got all this stuff to clean up."
Yeah. So
we clearly see how time has not changed Brad much, and he still is reliving his football days, and he's clearly an alcoholic. But I think all the stuff, I think that works actually with all of them, and compared to the rest of the stuff in this movie, I agree with you on all that.
Then we cut back. Then we cut back to the Richard Pryor movie.
Now we're back in the Richard Pryor movie, some kind of hero,
Brewster's
part
Millions.
2.
And
Brewster's Millions prequel.
And so we have basically Richard Pryor is working for this giant company and realizes, as people do often in many movies, that you can
the Webster Corporation.
Yeah, Webster Corporation, and we'll get into that in a sec. But you can shave fractions of cents off of transactions and make a lot of money. And so he being a computer whiz now, he basically writes a program to do that, and then gets a check for $85,000.
And lest we have to bring this up, we cannot leave this out. I hope I'm not interrupting again. This is what was referenced in Office Space, basically. All of this right here.
Oh, they've done this in so many movies. Like this happened once or twice, but
True.
I mean, it's just become a trope where somebody who's smart is going to make a lot of money by doing this thing that nobody will notice, which of course everybody always notices. But
Superman 3 did it first.
It's true. It's just breaking ground all over the place, this wonderful film. But Jordan, I did the math. $85,789 in 1983 would be $229,000 and some change today. So that's a lot. That's a lot of money. It's so he gets
that's
one
a lot
check
to embezzle.
Mm-hmm. So you're really wondering if Richard Pryor is that good of a guy in this movie. I don't know how they want us to feel for him, or feel about him.
Yeah.
Is he
Is he a
sympathetic?
criminal
Is he?
or, yeah.
No, I don't know.
Is he a bad guy? Is he? Yeah.
And so we meet that people. Then we discover that this was very much noticed by.
Yes.
Who?
We meet Ross Webster, played by the great Robert Vaughn, from The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Battle Beyond the Stars. List goes on and on and on.
Bud the Chud.
Yeah. He even played. He played a toupee in a movie once, even remarkably. No, I made that part up. I think he played the dead body in Shriek of the Mutilated, even. But yeah, he's just amazing, Robert Vaughn.
But he definitely plays a corpse in this film, because he's the boss of the Webster Corporation, the big corporation that Richard Pryor works for, and is like, who did this? I want to find out who this guy is, and we're going to use this dude. And the folks that work with him or his criminal crew here is his sister, Vera, played by Annie Ross, very interesting British actress. Many things.
She later played. I was going to say, yes, thank you. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say later in Throw Mama from the Train, the Billy Crystal, Danny DeVito movie.
I mean, just a lot of stuff. And
then Pamela Stevenson, who I think, wasn't she in that Chuck Norris movie Firewalker later on? And I think she was in Flash Gordon.
Yeah. She plays Lorelei, who is this movie's vapid blonde.
Yes. Very comic book, cartoonish looking. This. Her character, basically, she's sort of the Valerie Perrine of this movie, I guess, the Miss Tessmacher of this movie, if you will, to reference the first movie and second movie,
Yeah, the 80s loved just a ditzy blonde. They just loved it. Anyway,
yeah.
And this guy has, I don't know, crazy motives. He's a rich dude who's a wannabe Bond villain. He wants to destroy the Colombian coffee crop. So I guess you make money or something by reprogramming a weather satellite, because Jordan, I learned something in this movie. Weather satellites, they not only track weather, they can make weather. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Crazy.
That is amazing. That explains a lot of bad weather scenarios now, I think.
Why do we have these weather satellites if all they're doing are creating tornadoes and hurricanes? Who knew?
Oh my God. That means that the Russians can tamper with the weather, Anthony.
Only if they have Richard Pryor, the accidental computer genius, to reprogram the satellite. Right. And for some reason, they want to send him to Smallville, of all places. What a lucky coincidence, Jordan, that of all places, to kind of hide their nefarious antics, they would go to Smallville, where it just happens to be that Clark Kent is there for his high school reunion, and it just so happens to be he's Superman. What are the chances?
What are the chances? It's amazing. I mean, just coincidence, it's amazing how coincidence happens.
Well, I ran the numbers, Jordan, and that is statistically impossible. It would, no, I'm kidding. It's just, it's just, I don't know. This plot does not, I don't know. Even for a Superman,
it doesn't
movie,
gel, is what you're saying, like the detective in Psycho.
It don't make no sense, Jordan. It just don't make no sense. Anyway, so what also doesn't make sense is that Lana and Clark are going to have a picnic as a massive storm is bearing down on them.
Boy, the skies look dark in this scene, and I don't know if they were just like, no, it looks great for the movie, let's leave it,
It does look nice, but I would be, they're even, the wind is blowing. Like, if you've ever set up a picnic, the last thing you want to do is do that in like 20-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah. Most of us in the audience know what storm clouds look like, though, right?
Yeah, it's even raining on them a little bit. But anyway, we've got to have this damn picnic, Jordan. We have to have
because we've got to see him save the day again.
Yes, and what happens, Jordan?
So Lana's little kid, Ricky, runs after their dumbass dog, who just runs after something I can't remember. Ricky falls, and at some point, I guess we missed it or something.
We don't see that
a rock or something, and he might get accidentally hit by a combine. a combine that's rolling in, and then because he's been running after the dog, so and then suddenly Superman can hear the dog and hear Ricky, and he runs. He changes really quickly behind the fence. Clark changes really quickly behind the fence into Superman.
I thought that was clunky but cool. But yeah, why does he have to change into?
I'm making it sound naughtier than it is, probably, but yeah,
he's kind of running. Yeah, but anyway, go ahead.
Flies off after, saves Ricky. Lana meets him for the first time. Lana's like, "Wow, nice to meet you, Superman." And then before you know it, he's back as Clark, and Clark's like, "Wow, Superman was here. Wow, well,
what?"
Yeah, and Ricky goes on about it, and then he shuts down Ricky with, "Hey, I live in Metropolis, Ricky. I see Superman all the time."
Everybody knows Superman in Metropolis, and I'm his best friend, and he talks to me all the time. Funny, yeah, and with the same hair part.
How that works.
But
same hair part, just goes the other way.
It feels like a Superman movie. It's a little silly. It feels like
a little bit movie. Right there. It feels like a Superman movie again.
And Lana is just like, "Oh, hey, Superman, nice to meet you." Like, just not like, "Wow." It's just people are like, "Oh, Superman. Okay, cool." All right. Nice to meet you. Thanks. Anyway, then we come back to the Richard Pryor movie.
We're back in the Richard Pryor movie, and is this where he
gets Brad drunk to sneak in? So Brad, it just so happens, funny coincidence.
Am I skipping ahead?
No.
That's right. He gets.
Funny coincidence.
He's a security guard at a computer place there in Smallville. What
wow. It's just happenstance all over the place. Anyway,
what a real humdinger, as they say.
And I bet someone says something's a humdinger in this movie for sure. But we actually have a funny scene in which he gets Brad drunk, and somehow he knows Brad's a drunk. And he also gets drunk, in a great line. He's like, I guess you thought I was drunk too. And so it was just
what if like Richard Pryor had banged on that door though, and the security guard had been like, a Christian that didn't drink or something like that though. The whole thing would have went out the door then, then what would his plan be? He'd have to go to plan B all of a sudden, be like, "Oh, put the suitcase up, try something new."
Well, this guy is sort of a master of disguise, as we find out. So, I mean, I'm sure he would have thought of something, but yes, it's luckily the security guard that was guarding the place is a raging alcoholic who can easily be conned.
Yeah.
So he's drunk on the computer. It's kind of funny. And he's reconfiguring the satellite. And all sorts of wacky stuff starts happening, Jordan.
He does this whole thing where he ties a string, because they got to do it in sync. They got to turn the code in sync, and he ties drunk Brad's arm, who looks like Weekend at Bernie's now at this point in the movie.
Yeah,
I thought that turn the drunk arm, and then it is kind of funny because he asks him, "Aren't you going to pass out?" And he goes, "Oh yeah," clunk, and he falls backward. Yeah, and then
it's a good scene. It's a good scene. It's a lesser scene in a better Richard Pryor movie, but there are some funny moments in this movie. I'm not going to hate on it but
once again, you feel like you're not in a Superman movie here. It doesn't feel like you're in a Superman movie. It feels all wrong,
Yeah.
It feels like you're in a Richard Pryor movie once again.
Yeah. And so he causes all sorts of shenanigans all over the place. I won't even go into this because it's more Richard Lester humor. It's more wackiness. It's just not for my tastes. So there's a couple bits that are funny. I don't know. I don't really think a lot of the times that this movie's really trying to go for the laugh that it succeeds. And all these little stupid montages about stuff, and this continues to happen in the movie where things go wrong because of computers, then I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. But that happens.
Yeah. Sorry to offend the Lester fan. I know there's some directors out there that like hold a director. They hold a. Let me repeat that. I know there are some directors out there that hold a goddamn candle to Richard Lester, pretty much. Like he's a saint. And I'm like, really? Out of all the cinematic idols out there, I'm sorry. Lester's not really it for me on the cinematic spectrum, so to speak.
And you're a fan saying that. So, yeah. And it was just the same writers on all these movies too, wasn't it? At least in Who are the writers?
Oh, they had David and Leslie Newman on this one again, but
Mario Puzo
the first
didn't
two
have
movies,
any influence here. I don't know if that had something.
the first two movies had them, and then got about 3 or 4 more writers, yeah, including Mario Puzo. And then Tom Mankiewicz was doctored up the script at Puzo, and David Leslie Newman and Robert Benton. I think that's what it was. I think that's what it was. God, yeah. No, it was David Newman and Robert Benton, Mario Puzo. Okay, I'm going on here a bit. I'm sorry, but yeah.
So, anyways, a guy smashes a grapefruit into his wife's face, and then, like, that's okay. And then. Richard Pryor's character Gus hacks into a satellite. There's a storm in Colombia and tornadoes, and let's not even talk about the people from the planet that are there.
Causes a whole storm in Colombia.
Yeah.
And then let's see. Are we getting to
then Superman stops the disaster. Superman goes.
Oh, that's
there,
right.
And then Gus goes in. And
I remember where we're getting now. Yes. I think that this is the weird scene where he's on the roof. And they're skiing on this roof.
Skiing on a ski slope on the roof, yeah.
On the roof, on the tippity top of this corporate Ross Webster Corporation building. Yeah. And then Pryor is going up and talking about how Superman saved the day. And of course, Webster's not happy because he didn't want that to happen. He didn't want Superman to save. He was supposed to destroy the crop, I guess, this way.
Yeah. And Superman.
So he's not happy about it. Yeah.
But we are told this.
Pryor's describing it with a K. He's got the blanket wrapped around. He's like, Superman flew, man. He flew. And he's describing it. And then some wackiness happens.
Hold on. Before the wackiness happens, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
So as he's describing that, we get a weird series of cutaways that look like they're from another movie or second unit stuff. It's as he's describing it.
Yeah, that was weird. That still is weird to me.
It cuts, and I don't know what's weird about it, but it cuts to scenes of Superman doing all of this, and as it's being described,
it's a montage, but it's dissolved, but it's like halfway superimposed over his face. So and it's cut halfway cutting away.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre choices all around, and that's, to me, I don't know, that was so weird. But then what happens? What sort of wacky antics happen next in this funny film, Jordan?
Well, Pryor's trying to describe all this stuff that Superman did, and then he skis down the little slope and then off the damn skyscraper, which looks frightening in my opinion, really. Sorry if I'm raising my voice into the mic here, but it looks like it's like one of those bizarre dreams you have sometimes where you fall off a building in a weird way. In a shawl, in some skis. But he manages to go all the way down the glass like he's skiing a top slope, and then ends up all the way at the bottom with no injuries whatsoever. Somehow, somehow the canopy breaks his fall at the bottom.
That kind of scene.
Forget all logic. Just throw all logic out the window at this point on this one.
It's a screwball comedy. At this
hell of a stunt, though, I will say. They clearly had a stunt guy on wires.
Great wire work in this film. I have to say, I don't completely hate this movie, but it's definitely.
Oh, I agree.
It's there's some of the better wire work in all the Superman movies in this film, where like it really looks like Superman's flying in a lot of scenes.
I agree. A lot of the takeoffs and landings look the best in this movie when Reeve is doing it, especially. You could tell Reeve too has perfected it too at this point himself, but you can also tell the crew behind him, using the pulley systems and harnesses, all kind of have their shit down too by that point. Like they're a well-oiled machine, as they say,
So Gus and his crew are upset about the fact that Superman did this, so we're going to take down Superman. And what they decide to do is to make kryptonite, which is pretty interesting. I like that idea. Why didn't anyone think about that before? So they get a satellite, the same satellite, because it does everything. It causes weather. It also does radio spectrometry. It also does radio. Don't you know about spectrometry? Also does radio spectrometry and shoots a laser, which wouldn't work. But anyway, to determine what Krypton was made of, because they know this much, that kryptonite, hurt Superman. And they're all talking about, like, they all have little pieces, like, I heard once that Superman, like, doesn't everyone know this stuff about Superman? Like, isn't this common knowledge? And, they seem vaguely aware of who Superman is. It's really weird.
Yeah, like, well, Lois Lane did have that story years ago. Maybe that explains it. She did have the newspaper story in this universe years ago, so maybe that explains it. But
he just saved Columbia.
Yeah.
He's on the news. I mean, you would think that anyway. So
are we getting to the part, where he
Superman,
gets to the where he's trying to come up with the recipe for kryptonite, though?
Yeah. So they get it, and then we find out what kryptonite is made of, except for the fact that it's a list of elements, which is really cool. I kind of like this scene. And then, there's one that's unknown, right? So he puts Jordan. What the hell does Gus
on the
do?
side. Gus is a cigarette smoker, so he looks at the side of his pack of Marlboros and looks at what
it's
is
Camels,
it,
actually. Plug
or Camels. It is Camels. My God. Free plug, because it was product placement out the ass in these movies.
Yeah, totally. It's just like, look, I'm gonna look at my Camel cigarettes. It's
right down to I mean, in the first movie, Lois is looking clearly at a Timex watch, just so you know, folks. But yeah, and clearly General Zod crashes into a Coca-Cola sign. But yeah, Camel cigarettes, and I think what is it? Oxide, the element.
No, it's tar.
Nitrous
T-A-R,
oxide. Tar. That's what it was. Just
tar.
Low tar.
Tar is
because
not
it
a
says low
freaking
tar
element
on the side.
Tar is not a freaking element, Jordan.
What?
It's
Didn't
weird.
learn
It's
that
like
from Breaking
plutonium
Bad
and then whatever and tar, which is not. And then so somehow at Webster Corp, I don't even know what this company does.
The resin is an element too.
It would make more sense, but they just make it. This corporation just makes it, and this lady walks up like, here's that stuff you wanted, and it's just like a big, just giant crystal of kryptonite. It's wacky. Okay, why didn't someone do this before?
Like in wax paper or something, even. Yeah, and it's like she hands it to him like he just ordered a cookie out of the counter. I mean,
very bizarre. But luckily, Superman is going back to Smallville for little Ricky's birthday, and he gets the keys to the city. Like what? Like we're back in Smallville
little Ricky's birthday,
again.
Yes.
I mean, he went back, published a story. Everyone loved the stupid story. And then now we're back to Smallville again, right? And
That's right.
Superman is accepting the keys to the city, which is number one, Smallville is not a city, but the keys to the town. Is this a movie plot? Is this even the plot to a movie at this point?
Yeah.
Did somebody write this plot?
One critic on who was it? One critic, I think it was on the What Culture YouTube channel. Or who was it? It was one critic on YouTube. I hope I'm quoting the proper source here, but they said that this movie is more like, this almost, and I may be quoting somebody else on top of this saying this, but it's almost like this movie is like a side comic book. If you were looking at the comic book versions of this, it'd be like the side comic. It'd be like the Adventures of Gus Gorman, basically.
Yeah, who was in one episode or one issue, and then he got his spin-off series.
Yeah, because like all the Superman comics apparently had a spin-off at one point for Jimmy Olsen, for Lois Lane, for the dog Crypto,
All right.
Okay.
So then what happens? So he's getting the keys to the city, and
then a Jeep shows up, a military Jeep with Richard Pryor in the passenger seat and Annie Ross driving it. And they look like they're dressed up as military people, posing as military people. Man, save the day. He's almost talking like a preacher, like a reverend or something at a route, at a tent rally. The way he's talking more.
He's talking like Daddy Rich from Car Wash or something. But yeah, he's supposed to be a general, military army general, I guess.
He says, as a token of our gift, we're going to give this to Superman, this crystal. And Superman's looking at it skeptically and holding it. And he says, thanks very much. That's very kind. But he's looking at it. You can kind of tell he's looking at it skeptically. Maybe he knows, maybe he thinks it looks like Krypton in that moment or something. But it's a good performance from Reeve. I mean, Reeve is always great, of course.
I like that moment. But yes, Superman doesn't know what kryptonite looks like at this point. Even if you're Superman and someone hands you any kind of.
Well, now back up, because we had kryptonite in the first movie. We had it in Superman, the movie, and it did look almost the same as what this looked like. So that's why I wonder if he was kind of
what I'm saying,
looking
like,
at it skeptically.
Yeah, I mean, more than skeptically, if I were Superman, I wouldn't go by any giant green crystal. He knows what kryptonite looks like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jordan,
he'd be like, what the
like,
fuck? Like he'd be dropping it. Like,
yeah, Jordan, let's say, somebody, you're allergic to peanuts, right? And then somebody gives you a bowl full of something that looks like peanuts, but like, well, I don't know, maybe those are garbanzo beans or something. I mean, you would be like, wait a minute, is that anything close to peanuts? I mean,
unless Superman was just keeping his cool, keeping his game face on in this moment. But you do bring up a good point. Yeah, his reaction is a little sedated, right?
Yeah, because he just stares at the kryptonite. It's really weird. Or this version of kryptonite, because it's not 100% kryptonite. And because it's not 100% kryptonite, right?
Yes. This is where the movie gets interesting.
This is where the movie gets interesting. It gets there in a stupid way.
If not slightly laughable in some areas, yes. But nevertheless, this is where the movie gets interesting.
So Superman didn't die, and Russ Webster is like, I asked you to kill Superman, and you couldn't do that one simple thing.
No. He says it like this. I asked you to kill Superman, and you couldn't do that one simple thing.
Which I laughed at.
As he's on the phone with because Gus calls him up on the phone. This is all a phone call, by the way, folks. It looks like a TV show too at this point. It's weird. I
know this does feel like a TV show, this whole thing. But I thought that's one of the funniest lines in the movie. It's a great line.
Yeah. And then he hangs up and he's like, "Ooh, yeah." But then, it's gonna get interesting here, folks.
Yeah, it gets interesting, folks. And then so Superman goes to see Lana Lane and
back to her house.
And so he's acting a little weird. He starts perving on her a little bit. And she's like, and of course, as you do, whenever Superman's anywhere, something's about to happen. Like, she's like, someone just calls her for no reason and tells her, like, Madge just said that there's a truck hanging off a bridge. Well, I guess you've got to go, Superman. See ya. And he's actually like, nah, I think I'll stay around a while.
Yeah, he says, oh, don't worry. I always make it on time. Just sit down. Why don't we talk? And you're like, uh-oh, what, Superman? What's going on? Even you as the audience, you're like, whoa, why is it weird now? It just got weird, mama.
This movie already had a weird vibe, and now it's like,
But this is already, we're getting an indication that something is off with
something
Superman
is wrong
because of this crystal. Something is not right with him.
And so he
doesn't know.
Yeah, he kind of shakes it off.
What's wrong with him?
He goes to in an unintentionally funny scene. He goes to the accident and the truck just fell off the bridge. And then he's like, he's late to this disaster. And he's like, well, thanks, Superman. And they're not even like, thanks, Superman. They're just like, oh, no, we don't need you. The truck fell off the bridge.
He flat out says, if only you'd gotten here faster.
Thanks. And that's something I'd always wanted to see in a movie. So I got that. It's just like, Superman, you're late. You should have been here 5 minutes ago, Superman. Oh, well.
Because something hits him when he's sitting there with Lana that he should go deal with this finally. Oh, you're right. Maybe I should go. You almost wondered, did he smoke a joint right before he was talking to Lana and then suddenly decided to flirt? And then the way his reaction is so delayed, but
he's not really flirting. He's creeping on her and she's even like, okay.
Yeah. And of course, mind you, folks, for the layman out there that don't know anything about Superman, Lana still doesn't know Superman and Clark are the same person. She just knows Clark Kent, even though he has his glasses off in this scene. Yes, he has his glasses off, just like the way she knew him. She still doesn't know that he's Clark Kent.
Yeah. So anyways, then we get a whole chunk of this movie that is probably one of the more interesting pieces in the entire Superman franchise. Whether it's handled well, that's a different thing to discuss. But what happens? What's the first thing that Superman does out of nowhere for no reason?
Well, first off, the reaction after the guy tells him if only he got in there quicker kind of sets it off because he looks down at the ground like, oh, I fucked up. The look on his face is like literally like, I fucked this one up.
Oops.
So then,
So for no reason, he's straight into the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and there's a souvenir seller who is a recurring joke who's upset about that. Anyway,
this poor guy.
And
yes.
then he goes to I guess it's the 1984 Olympics. He goes forward in time. I don't know. 83 was not an Olympic year. He blows out the torch for no reason.
Just
and then
big dickhead move.
Yeah. And then just a bunch of weirdness happens. And then Ross wants to, now instead of coffee beans, that didn't work. So now he wants to stop oil. He wants to, drive up the price of oil. He's full Bond villain here at this point. And so
pretty much, yeah.
He wants to stop some oil tankers and all the oil pumps, which can be done by computers magically because computers are magic. And then Gus is like, I want a supercomputer,
Yeah.
And so Ross is like, I'll build you one. And then what happens? We get horny Superman here, as if he wasn't horny with Lana. What happens next?
He's also stopped shaving, by the way, and for some reason his suit has taken on a purple tint with a hint of black in there.
Yeah, and it's darker red. I like it. I think it's a cool suit, actually.
And yet, yeah. But yeah, and he's got a 5 o'clock shadow perpetually all the time now. And then, but yeah. Oh, so Ross's blonde girl. I love this moment. Yeah, a lot. In this moment, Ross's blonde-haired babe, Pamela, played by Pamela Stevenson. Yeah, she's just waiting for Superman on the top of the Statue of Liberty. I'm sorry, I should say Lady Metropolis, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know what to. I guess it's not the Statue of Liberty technically, because since we're in Metropolis, so it'd be Lady Metropolis, I guess. But, yeah, and she, he has the funniest line at this point that basically sums up everything. He says, "I hope you don't expect me to save you, because I don't do that anymore." And she's like flirting with him right there on the top of the Statue of Liberty. She's in heels in a skimpy dress, looking like Marilyn Monroe and Betty Boop or something. And literally on the top, there was no problem, no fear, not even wind up there, even hardly.
Yeah.
And she convinces him, flirtingly in a way, that he needs to go basically cause an oil spill with one of the big tankers in the ocean. And he does. He flies off and he does
tanker around, and then he just punches a hole in the side.
Man, just rips open the steel, and he looks angry when he's doing all this all the time, like he's just fed up with being the nice guy.
Well, first he goes back and he and Lorelei hook up, which is weird. Not my Superman.
Oh, that's right. They hook up after that. Yeah, that's right. He flies right back in.
That's
and
his reward.
She's waiting for him.
Yeah,
it's like his little. And you hear the saxophone 80s porn sounding romantic music in the background.
Yeah.
Oh man, it just cheapens Superman a little bit.
It's the Cinemax version of Superman.
It is.
And then he goes to the bar in the very famous scene. What happens at the bar?
Oh, this scene. Oh my God. People are walking by the bar because they see Superman from the window. I mean, of course, now this is the funny thing about this bar that he's drinking in. You and I have hung out in a few bars. Most of the windows are usually like tinted a lot of times where you can't see the sun outside.
Yeah. Drunks don't like the sun. Yeah.
This bar has a nice big open view of the city and the streets across and everything. And so people are walking by and they happen to see Soups sitting there at the bar getting tanked up. And he's drinking. I mean, he is getting tanked. He's about a fifth into a bottle of Bushmills, because it looks like another product placement again. It's
Superman, evil Superman drinks Bushmills.
Yes.
And at one point, choice.
Yeah, at one point you hear
not being super.
You hear a guy walk by going, "It's Superman, and he's drunk."
Oh, it's awesome! I love this.
And then he starts to be the real, and I've been a bartender before. Man, I don't know how I would deal with this if Superman were in my bar being a dick and suddenly started just flicking peanuts at the mirror like BBs with his super flicking action. I don't know how I would deal with that. What are you going to do? Call the door guy, even if you have a door guy?
Look, Superman,
You
I
call
think
the
you've
door
had a
guy?
little too much.
Look,
Why
yeah.
don't you go home and sleep it off? What the
I
hell
used
do
to
you
have a
say?
door guy that would, tell the guy, look, you're either going to stop that now or you're going to jail. How would that work in this situation? I think not. So yeah, he's flicking peanuts at the mirror. And then coincidentally, once again, Lana and her boy Ricky happen to be walking by and
What?
seeing this pathetic mess of Superman.
What a
What in the world
coincidence!
of all the things? Yeah,
Drink
what a
every time there's a
coincidence.
coincidence, Jordan. Just good God.
God,
Go,
let me
go
take
on.
a drink.
Go on. Drink some Bush.
Okay.
Take a shot of Bushmills every time something.
The taste
wacky.
of synchronicity.
And then what does the crappy little kid do? What does he?
He's just like Superman. He knows he's sloshed. I guess he cuts himself off at this point. He staggers out of the bar, and
he probably drank like all the liquor in there. He probably drank all the Bushmills.
Yeah. That's what I picture. I mean,
how
that
much
fifth
does
of
it take for
Bushmills we
Superman
saw
to
was
get drunk?
Yeah.
It's like a Jerry Seinfeld joke. How much does Superman have to drink?
I'm guessing he probably drank about 3.5 worth. Yeah, at this point. I'm saying 3 bottles and a fifth. So we just saw the fifth. We saw the last part of it. That's probably what. Yeah, he probably could put it away, I imagine, because he's a Superman.
Just super.
But anyway, and he's staggering. And all you can hear is Superman. He's not drunk. You're not drunk, Superman. He's just sick. That's all. He's just sick. That's all. Superman. And he flies off.
Sick of being in a second fiddle in a Richard Pryor movie, kid.
Yeah.
That's why Superman's really drinking.
He staggers away. He staggers into flight. He staggers as he's flying even. Jesus Christ. I mean, he can't even keep a straight flight, folks. Not like he normally can. He doesn't have the hang gliding body at this point. He's got the staggering, slouching body hanging in the air at this point. He's a mess, folks.
He's not. Yeah.
And then it gets even more interesting.
Then he goes to a junkyard, and then what happens?
He flies into a junkyard and just screams his motherfucking head off. Ah! And it scares everybody away from the yard, the wrecking yard. They all just were like, "Oh my God, Superman! He's yelling his fucking, he's yelling his fucking head off. Oh my God, what is he doing here? Get out of here! Everybody, get out of here!" And the 5 people that work there stagger. They run out of there, and then suddenly, Superman kind of just like. Sort of cringes up into himself, and suddenly Clark appears out of Superman. Clark Kent appears out of Superman, and suddenly they're staring at each other, Clark Kent and Superman.
That double exposure effect that kind of splits it out. You know what I mean? Or what do you call that effect?
It's a double exposure is what it is. Yeah. And first it superimposes over him, and then it splits into a double exposure. Yeah.
And it looks kind of cheesy, is all I gotta say. I don't know how else you would do
this is still a practical effects era,
I don't know. Anyway, it just becomes very surreal. Is this a dream? Is this real?
Yeah.
And then what happens? Jordan?
Superman and Clark start going at it in the junkyard. Superman throws a bunch of tires around Clark. They all land perfectly and cage him in. And I guess because Clark still has Superman within him, somehow he's not the complete weak Clark. He manages to break out of the tires. And just this fight gets ugly. It gets worse. At one point he says, "You always wanted to fly, Kent. Now's your chance." And he picks him up and hurls him right into a bunch of tires. And then, then he puts him into a machine.
It's a great fight. Puts him in a big, sort of a trash compactor, but for cars.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's really good.
You talk. I'm sorry.
I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid.
Really? Wow.
And I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid. Yeah. And I just realized that watching, I was like, man, when was the last time I saw this? It's been a very, very long time. And as a kid, I remember that scene because it was really scary because, there's Clark Kent, being crushed to death in what is a very effective effect.
It scared me too as a kid because you don't want to see that going on with Superman. Even this, I'll say when he went to the dark side too, it scared me. Just like when he became a man in part 2, that frightened me too as a kid. I didn't want to see Superman vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. And that part is good. This whole scene is pretty good. It's this thinly veiled metaphor for killing for the dual nature of Superman or dual nature of people, right?
Yeah.
And so he chokes Clark, best Superman and evil Superman, and chokes him, which is kind of weird and scary. And then he disappears.
It happens. Well, then it happens the other way. Actually, Clark chokes Superman. At first, it's happening one way, and then Clark turns on him and chokes Superman. Yeah, and then that beautiful moment.
So who is really evil at this point? Yeah. If Clark is killing, anyway, literally murdering.
It's a cool. But then we get the signature moment after that where he realizes who he is again, and he pulls the shirt open to reveal the clean S, and then.
But Jordan, so many questions. Was this all in Superman's mind?
I wonder that too still to this day. Yeah. If he was
or did this actually happen? Was it physically he split into two? I don't know. It's an interesting.
I think being an alien, he probably really did split into two. I think that's the bizarre part of it. I think that's why they're playing off the fact that he's an alien more so in that scene, which is why it works partly too, I think. Or
it's an effect of the kryptonite. I think they write off a lot by saying that kryptonite they made has a lot of weird effects,
True.
And that he's good again.
But then he's good again somehow. Yeah. It's not just, sometimes drug addicts wake up in a barrel of trash. No, Superman goes to a junkyard and fights himself, and then he's good again.
Yeah, he hit rock bottom. Now he's got his AA token. He's back on top. He's kicked the bottle. He's back at it.
Kicked the bottle within like a few minutes, literally 15 minutes, because he only fought Clark in 15 minutes. I don't know.
He goes and blows that oil somehow back into the oil tanker. That
was pretty amazing.
Superman movies always have interesting physics and fixes that. And then somehow he knows where Ross lives and goes to Ross's penthouse.
Oh, you left out the fact that he moved the Leaning Tower of Pisa back to leaning again. You left that part out.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank God.
Fixing things. And then the poor guy had to smash all the other
Leaning Tower.
Then the poor guy had to smash all the other sculptures again.
Actually happens at the end of the movie, Jordan.
Sorry.
But yes, it should have happened here, but we have to wait a long time for
I'll have to repeat that again. I'm sorry. I'll have to edit that out. I'm sorry.
Your penance is you have to watch this movie again.
Okay, fine. I'll sit through it
again. So anyways, no, I'm kidding. So then we get some answering machine exposition at Ross's penthouse, right?
Oh, yeah.
The video says, "Hey, we're at the Grand Canyon."
He flies in, and it's like he left him a message, like on a voice answering machine from back then. Literally, "Hey, old buddy, here's where you'll find us. We're in Aspen, doing blow." No.
Yeah. We're at the Grand Canyon doing blow.
Oh, sorry, wrong place.
Is where they are.
They would be perfect for that, though. Aspen doing blow.
That's if you go to like Matthew McConaughey's, house. Hey there, buddy. Tickets on the table right there for you. And we're gonna be in Aspen doing some blow. So why don't you come join us?
If McConaughey was a supervillain in a movie like this.
He would be the nicest supervillain ever.
That's
He'd
true.
be like really cool. You're like, I kind of like the supervillain in this.
It's okay. I left you the gun on the table to kill yourself. There you go. That's right.
So anyways, they're at the Grand Canyon in some weird balloon chairs.
Yes. I don't know if that is that real. Is that real technology? Do you know?
Not with that small a balloon. No, it isn't. But it's effective.
But it had hot air.
Effect.
Come on, Anthony. It had hot air.
Jordan, the balloon's like 4 feet across. No way. I'm just gonna. Why don't you try it? Why don't you?
I would probably be just like Richard Pryor in this scene.
Go in your backyard
and down all the way. I'd probably ride on a donkey all the way. I'm going to hell for
the
that
donkey.
impression.
That was Warren Oates doing Richard Pryor, and so these weird balloon chairs, kind of a cool effect. But yeah, Richard Pryor is taking the donkey. I would also donkey down myself as well. And going into this cave where they've built this giant ultimate computer that Richard Pryor had previously written down on napkins. Somehow. But how did the contractors get in there?
How did the contractors get in? That's a good question. Like, it goes right back to that Saturday Night Live skit, where the James Bond villain's like, well, that's where the Shark Tank's going to be over there. And then, Like, yeah,
I mean, I'm amazed they built a supercomputer in 2 days.
in a record amount of time, they built that thing with no flaws too. Apparently, nothing broken, nothing. Everything works perfectly.
Oh, totally.
It turns on all perfectly. You know, I mean,
yeah, it's pretty amazing. But then they have to take balloon chairs down there. This is really a lesser Roger Moore Bond movie at this point.
I think you're right.
You know, it just
Roger Moore Bond
like,
films were very campy. This is very campy. This is like it not taking itself seriously as much anymore. Like, and the thing is, the first two movies had the perfect balance of humor and drama and darkness and all that. And and that's the thing about the Marvel movies nowadays, when they're done well, that's the beauty of it. I call it the Steel Magnolias effect, where you can have a moment where you have the audience in tears, and then a character can pop up and say something and make them laugh, and if you have the audience there, oh my God, man, you have a hit, in my opinion, and you've got a great movie. Also, you've got a perfect balance of a movie as far as drama and comedy and all that goes, right?
Yeah.
Because you need it. You need a balance. You can't just go full on the other way or full on the other way, or, I think that's Richard Lester went extreme, and I think he was excessive here,
You have to know what you want to do and the tone that you want to set.
Yeah.
And you set a general tone, and then you can waver in that. You can be funny at times, you can be serious at other times.
Yeah.
But you have to decide whether it's a comedy or an action. Like day one of a movie, you have to figure out what the hell you're doing and what you want the audience to feel.
Donner and Richard Donner and Tom Mankiewicz really deserve credit for the first movie and the second movie. For what was left of the second movie that they mostly had done before Lester took over. But they really deserve a lot of credit still to this day, because they knew they had a central goal for everything. They knew what they were after. They knew what they were doing. They had one word they would use, which was verisimilitude. And it's a word that means truthfulness. And that's what they were after, just truthfulness, Let's not lie to the audience. Let's not gloss it over, but let's make it real somehow and believable somehow.
Yeah. Especially because at this point it becomes really whack. So then we get to the final scene, and there's a giant supercomputer that has, it's got defenses built in. And so they're literally playing a video game shooting at Superman, which of course doesn't work because they don't know much about Superman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It looks like an Atari game or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Warner owned Atari at this point, I think. If I'm getting this wrong, I apologize. But yeah. And that video was actually made by Atari. It is probably the best Atari game, probably one of the best Superman games ever.
For graphics back then, that's really good. I was going to say.
Literally playing a video game and shooting missiles at Superman. But anyway, Superman, that doesn't work. Superman shows up, and Lorelai's like, hey, remember me? And he's like, no. He goes full Tinder swindler. He's like,
yeah, I'm sorry.
And he says, oh, no, sorry, that wasn't me.
That was someone else.
She's like, oh. So this is her. And then he's like, the four of you, and Gus is like, I'm not with them, Superman.
Yeah.
And that was a funny scene.
See, I'm not with them. Like, that's perfect. If you don't want to be if you want to be the good guy, just do that.
We haven't really talked much about Richard Pryor's lines because there really aren't that many that are funny. He didn't
write them himself. That's why. He
feels unprepared, and you can tell he's kind of ad-libbing at times.
Because he didn't. He just wanted to stick to the script, from what I understand. They wanted him to ad-lib more, and he didn't want to do that. He was trying to respect the he was trying, actually, I think he was really trying not to be a big show, because he thought, he actually thought, well, he didn't, I wonder if he thought, like, surely they're not going to make this about me. Surely it'll be more about Superman, and surely I'm just a side character, and they're paying me a lot of money for this.
Maybe he didn't feel worthy, or he wanted to be a Superman movie, not a Richard Pryor movie, I imagine.
And he is like, he's second billed to Christopher Reeve in this movie, if not first, if I'm correct.
And so there's a lot of defenses this computer has. They shoot a plastic bubble at Superman to suffocate him. And that they haven't done the research, because Superman can survive in space. Right? Andy has laser beam eyes, so he just shoots himself. It's just the dumbest thing ever. And then,
yeah, what was that? It
there's a
looked like
kryptonite ray.
looked like they shot him into a. I'm gonna sound dirty here. It looked like he shot him into a giant lambskin condom. Honestly, you know.
Well, I was going to say a hamster ball, a little more PG version of that.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Pick which version to edit later on. I don't know, the PG or the PG or the R version of that joke.
I'm leaving them both in. Anyway, so they have. So the bubble doesn't work, and then a kryptonite ray. The computer shoots a kryptonite ray at Superman, and this does work.
It weakens him this time instead of making him evil.
And then Gus has a change of heart, Jordan.
He does. He grabs an axe.
You realize he's not that.
And he says, "Here's Johnny."
Maybe,
no.
Yeah, maybe he does embezzle money from corporations, and maybe he is an accomplice in everything that's come up, that has happened so far.
He didn't know they were going to try to kill Superman, I think.
We didn't know we were going to try to kill Superman, even though I tried to kill Superman earlier. Yeah. And literally,
you want to kill Superman? No. And he grabs the axe and he starts chopping away at the big giant spherical ray, shooting it. Spherical shaped thing with the laser center. Shooting at Superman.
And then a bunch of stuff happens, and then he pulls this one eraser on a screw, and which is what powers the whole computer, Jordan.
Yeah.
This one little thing, swallows it in a fight with in a fight with Ross, and the computer shuts down. End of the movie, Jordan. Well, that was a great movie, wasn't it? No, what happens next?
The computer starts going out of control, and then Ross Webster's sister gets sucked in and turned into a brainiac creature.
Well, yeah. Okay, hold on. Yes, that does happen, but the computer becomes sentient, number one.
Oh, yeah.
Powers itself.
In a short amount of time, too, mind
through
you.
the grid. In like 1 second, because it's like Skynet over here, and sucks all the power out of the entire US grid to power itself, even though for some reason it's day where they are, but it's night in the rest of the
Superman this Superman 3 came out a year before the Terminator. So oh my God, Ross Webster's computer set off the whole thing, maybe.
That'd be interesting. A tie-in.
Ross Webster's computer is Skynet.
Tie-in. Superman fighting Terminators.
I hope I'm not plagiarizing.
Can you imagine a Terminator going back in time? If this is the same universe, going back in time to stop like a baby Clark Kent.
I was trying to stop Ross Webster from starting the war. Anyway, end of movie. But yeah, I mean, Superman has to reuse.
But I mean, you're right.
Superman destroys the computer by reusing.
Well, hold on. Sorry, I skipped over that piece where, what's her name? Vera gets sucked into the computer somehow and turned into like mechanized, and then turn in like with this host body. The computer has a host body, and it's like shooting laser or energy beams at Superman and everybody. Yeah. And then Superman leaves. And he comes back with some chemicals, right? And then what happens, Jordan?
Well, it was the chemicals that we meant to mention, these chemicals that were there earlier in the factory fire that were going to explode, because that little plot doesn't really. I mean, it was like one little bit of suspenseful moment, but anyway, he grabs these chemicals from that old factory, and because once they get hot, they turn to acid and blow up everything. And apparently, though, the fact that it's in a cave helps, I guess. And yeah, he brings the chemicals back and throws it into the brain of the computer, and then the computer eats it and then blows up basically, and the whole cave just blows up. And it's almost like, once again, it looks like a James Bond movie with the way it blows up, and
Yeah, the vial of acid, whatever this acid is, expands with heat, and it destroys the computer. And this movie's brought to you by Dow Chemical. And it's a weird ending. It's a bit anticlimactic because Superman, all he does is leave this open vial or this canister of chemicals, and the chemicals do the rest. It's not like Superman does something.
Yeah.
He's being sucked into the computer the way Vera was and integrated. And I was like, I forgot how this movie went. For 30 seconds, I was like, oh my God, I want to see Meccano Superman. You know, like I want to see Cyborg Superman. And I thought that's where they're
I
going.
wonder if some of this is left over from an early draft of Superman 3, because I know early on they were going to do Brainiac as the villain in Superman 3, but for some reason they didn't want to go there.
And so there's an abrupt cut from that scene. And then we go to where, Jordan, to finally cap the movie, to end it all.
We are back at the Daily Planet, and Lois is back from her trip to Bermuda.
Oh, did she have a good time?
Apparently she did, I guess. Did she?
I mean, it's important enough to her vacation is important enough to miss a Superman movie.
Did she have a good time? Because it feels like she's out of place, doesn't it? I guess. Is that what you're saying, Anthony?
No, I was just being facetious. She missed the whole Superman movie, and she was like, there is a funny line where she's like, some crap was going on in Bermuda, and then she was like, well, I was kidnapped by the cab driver, so that clued me off or tipped me off. And there was it's a funny joke there, and it's like, why am I more interested in Lois Lane's vacation than the Superman movie I just watched? That was intriguing.
Was that another movie we missed? Yeah, it was Lois in Bermuda being kidnapped by a cab driver, being threatened with a snuff film.
I don't know. It was just funny. But anyway, that's the end of the movie.
And then, Lana's being offered a job at the Daily Planet.
Oh, yeah.
Being given a job at the Daily Planet, we find out, she's already working there.
Yeah. Nepotism strikes again. Clark gets her a job.
Clark got her a job. And then Lois notices the rock on her finger that Clark has given her from that coal diamond. I don't know what else to call it. The coal crushed diamond. And she's like, Clark gave you that? Like, and we're also like, is it as the audience, I think we're wondering the same thing. Like, is it a wedding ring? Why, is it
I'd have to go back. Ring? I'd have to go back and watch. Is she wearing it on her ring finger? Because that was her wedding ring that she pawned initially. And isn't that weird? I mean, ladies, I don't know. If man gives you a giant ass diamond ring,
yeah.
I mean, is that friendship, or do you think he really wants more?
He gives you a ring and you haven't seen him since your high school days. Like,
Lana, come on, girl, let's talk. Lana, you shouldn't have taken the ring. I mean, seriously, he's gonna feel like he's entitled to something, and you don't send mixed messages. You're either with him or you're not, girl. I mean, and he got you a job at his work. Okay, wait a minute. That's a little weird. That's a little, that's a little obsessive there. If he sees you all the time and he gave you a ring, I don't know. Let's talk about this.
She's not weirded out at all, though.
No,
I guess nothing's weird about this to her. I gave a girl I once liked a CD, and that weirded her out right there. I mean,
yeah. And it was also 2017, and she was like, "What am I going to do with a CD?" So, anyways, Superman 3.
Superman 3.
I mean, that's kind of how the movie ends, isn't it? I can't remember what happened after that. I think that was it.
Yeah, and then
funny jokes.
We have the same fly-off shot that we see in the previous movies and 4 later on. It's the same shot from the first movie where we get the Superman breaking the fourth wall after he flies into space. He looks at the audience, kind of gives us a nod, wink kind of thing. Yeah, that's it, man. That's all, folks. Jeez, that's it. But
Well,
yet this movie still did well. Like I said in the beginning of the podcast, or this movie still did well in the summer of 1983 amongst Return of the Jedi, the third back then considered the third in the Star Wars franchise, even though it wasn't part 3. Yes.
yeah, it was one of
the-
the highest grossing movies of the year. I don't
And
remember how it
two James
ranked.
Bond movies at the box office, neck to neck, that were both rated in.
Oh, that
Octopussy and Never Say Never Again.
Never
from
Say
another
Never
studio that
Again. We should
somehow was
talk
able to
about
make a
that.
Bond film. Yeah.
Interesting year in the history of Bond films.
It was a hot summer for movies here in 1983. And I mean,
Yeah.
Superman 3 held its own pretty well in the summer compared to what would happen with the fourth movie later on, which would be
Well, we
another
shan't.
podcast entirely.
We shan't speak of the fourth movie. So the
Yes.
budget was 39 million, which is a lot of
Ah.
money. And we
It's a
know
lot of
Richard
money in
Pryor got, I
1983.
think, 5. And I mean, they were paying these folks a lot of money.
I think Return of the Jedi was 32 million, if that gives you an idea of what was spent as well.
What?
You know? Yeah.
What? Oh, wow. Okay. They were even filming in Canada too. I don't know. Anyway, that's a lot of money. I don't know where the money went. Probably.
I know the
some big-
Salkinds thought cheap. So yeah, there was a reason for shooting in Canada. Yeah. I mean, of course,
Yeah.
Canada was Smallville in all of those movies, except for I think 4. But yeah,
Yeah.
Canada doubled for Kansas in those movies.
Oh, like Alberta or wherever they filmed looks like.
Mhm.
I mean, it's,
I think it's
same
Alberta, yeah,
same
you're right.
difference. But the budget was 39 million and it made 80.2 million. So it doubled its money.
Was
Did
that just
pretty well.
domestically?
Pretty well. You know, not as probably
that-
well as it could have, but I mean, it was
Yeah.
one of the toppest grossing movies that year. So something worked. What do we know? We've sat here and savaged this film.
Obviously, it didn't do as well as Return of the Jedi, though. Still,
No, but
You
what I mean, come on, man. Nothing's judged on the Star Wars scale, you know.
yeah.
But okay, so like I said, I hadn't seen this movie really since I was a little kid that I recall.
Yeah.
But I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I know
Yeah.
there's a lot of hate for this out there. Hey, it's a Superman movie. Come on, let's be real. I'm not the biggest Superman fan, but these Superman movies are always a bit kind of, even the serious ones are kind of a little campy and little, you know, whatever, formulaic. But the thing about this, Jordan, is this fails as a comedy.
It does.
And it only moderately succeeds as a Superman film. You know,
I agree. That's a good way to put it. That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah.
because all the Lester-esque, I want to blame Lester. I don't know. I guess we better blame the script writers. The comedy is not,
Combination. Yeah. I hate to say it.
it falls flat. Okay. And Richard Pryor's wasted. Like you said, he's ad-libbing here and he doesn't want to be. He wants to be in the movie. Give the man something to say instead of like, oh, Superman. Oh, hey, this.
Make him a character. Give
don't
him a
put-
character to play.
Yeah, don't put him on the spot. You know, I mean, in other movies, he was great because I guess he had scripted lines. He probably ad-libbed a little, but don't just throw him in there and expect him to carry this film on his shoulders. you know?
Why didn't they just do Brainiac, and then use that thing at the end? Have, Pryor fall into the machine and he becomes Brainiac, fights Superman. Give him something to do.
Oh, that's interesting.
Make him a villain or something,
Well, I thought there were some good ideas here that they didn't explore, like as much as they should have. Like evil Superman, that could have been half of a movie. We get 10 minutes of it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we got a whole montage basically of it, of Superman being evil.
And I loved that. I loved evil Superman. He was a dick, but I was like, this is interesting. This is cool. And then it abruptly ends. That should have been the end of the movie.
Evil Superman is more interesting than like evil Peter Parker in another odd threequel, Spider-Man 3.
Oh, we are not watching Spider-Man 3. The movie of many villains.
I don't think I can watch those dancing moves again.
Lord. I
For
was
one.
just having
But yeah,
flashbacks.
him becoming the douchebag, dark side in that one, compared to,
but
Superman's bad side, Superman, evil Superman. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, and they also have this sentient supercomputer or a supercomputer that becomes sentient fighting Superman. That's interesting there. But that was only 10 seconds of the movie, guys. It's like Oh my goodness, it's sentient. They didn't even describe it in those terms. And then it somehow turns people into robots. I don't know. Anyway, but there are ideas here.
Yeah, it reminds me of what a critic once said about one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies where it's like you could make a movie out of each effect almost. There's literally like a story almost behind every effect. And Superman 3 is almost like that, where there's just like these gaps with effect sequences in there where it's like a whole other movie that doesn't feel like it's in this movie. It feels like a crate from another bus or something, or another van.
Like they cut in a Richard Pryor movie and they cut in 2 different Superman movies.
Yeah.
It feels a bit rushed, and it feels the plot is a bit convoluted, and it doesn't all gel together into one piece. There's good chunks,
Yeah.
But I mean, imagine going back to like what could have been. What if evil Superman he's evil for most of the film, and then he fights the evil supercomputer at the end and turns good while he's fighting the supercomputer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To add to this too, I remember I think it's the commentary for the Donner cut of Superman 2. There was a great commentary again with Tom Mankiewicz and Richard Donner, who did the original 1 and 2 back-to-back Superman movie. But yeah, Tom Mankiewicz said that on Superman 3 at one point when it came out, Terry Semel from Warner Brothers called him up and said, why are our numbers not as good as the last 2 movies? What did we do wrong? And Tom Mankiewicz said, you didn't make a Superman movie. You made a Richard Pryor movie.
That Richard
That's
Pryor
where you were wrong.
wasn't even really used well in.
And that's the problem too. Richard Pryor's not even used well in this movie.
He's kind of wasted.
Total waste of the man's talent. This is a man who could, and you're talking improvise. This is a man who could walk up on stage without material and still be funny.
Yeah, one of the funniest men who changed comedy, but you got to give him something to work with. I mean,
yeah, but
I
like
get the
I
feeling.
said, I don't think he wanted to come in and improvise. He wanted to come in and be a part of the movie. He didn't want to be the star of the movie. He wanted to be a part of a Superman movie.
Yeah, and so he's sort of, the ideas floated on the Carson show, and he's probably a Superman fan,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Fanboy gushing, and then they put him in the movie, and then I was watching an interview where he's just talking about like, well, I mean, how was filming Superman 2 or 3, how was filming Superman 3, and he was like, well, I sat in a hotel room in London a lot, so I'd be there for like, they wouldn't use me for like 4 days or a week, and then he was over there for a couple of months, 2-3 months, and it wasn't like he was on set all the time. There was a lot of downtime because he's really not in that much of the movie if you think about it.
And on a big movie like that, there's long setup time for things when you're having to be in an effect shot, or you're having to be rigged in a wire, or
Yeah, and he was mostly.
Yeah, I believe that. If he said he was in his hotel a lot of times waiting to be driven to the set, yeah, that's probably true.
So it probably affected it. And then I have the feeling that both Reeve and Pryor were not really satisfied with themselves with how the film turned out. I know Reeve wasn't.
What I understand, no.
And Pryor,
Reeve said the best part of 3 was the part where he had to fight himself,
I'm surprised they didn't have Pryor fighting himself. Like Gus gets split into 2 people. I don't know. It's wacky.
Well, I mean, when Cannon had to come back to him, when Cannon came to Reeve on 4 after they got the rights from the Salkinds, they really had to bribe him back, from what I understand. They had to offer him that's why they offered him a big chunk of money, and they offered him script approval and like an associate producer. He really was kind of a producer as well.
Yeah.
So that was like, they offered him a lot. They offered him the world and more to come back, because I don't think he wanted to come back after 3, especially.
No.
And they asked Margot Kidder on set on 4 in a BBC interview, I think it was, I saw, why do you think Chris Reeve decided to come back? And she was very blunt. She said, well, money is a very deciding factor for some people.
Ooh. But that was canon. That was a different story. That was Menachem and
I'm pretty sure after 3, Reeve was done though. He was like ready to hang it up by that point, but he needed money by that point.
Everybody has a price. I mean, this is really his bread and butter. He did some other movies, but he will always be known as Superman,
He considered 5, I think, after Batman. I think I think he considered doing a Superman 5. I heard. I'm not sure how true that is, though.
Yeah.
But,
Well, Jordan, this movie certainly didn't win any awards. It was not nominated for an Oscar or a Golden Globe, but it was nominated for 2 Razzies.
that I did not know. It
Number
actually made the
1
Razzie.
was Worst Musical Score.
Oh,
And
good thing you brought that up. I can say something about that. Yeah, the music is credited to being by Giorgio Moroder, who did the music for the song "I Feel Love" by Donna Summer, and Alan Parker heard that. He did the score for Midnight Express. Around that same time, he did the score for Scarface, the Al Pacino remake of Scarface, directed by Brian De Palma. But on Superman 3, he's credited as a score. I mean, what I'm saying is the man had credentials by this point, yet hardly any of his score is in the movie.
yeah, what they
Any of
used
his original score, a lot of it's him conducting John Williams stuff.
Yeah.
The rest, the incidental stuff is some of his, but it's not a lot. There's not a lot of his music in the movie. A lot of it's reusing John Williams stuff.
It's bland. What is the main theme from Superman 3? You know what I mean?
It's just the John Williams theme again. More
Exactly.
Or less,
Yeah, they didn't come up with anything new.
Kind of because you heard that, you know.
But the second Razzie, Jordan, that they were nominated for, Worst Supporting Actor, Richard Pryor.
Whoa! Ouch!
But he was sitting on a $40 million deal after that, so I doubt he cared. But
he's like, man, I got $40 million. Fuck, shit. I hope I didn't get in trouble for that voice, though.
But I don't know. I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. Yeah. I don't know.
It's got a broad scope to it, like any Superman movie should.
There are pieces of a Superman movie in here that are good. I don't know. They didn't explore the elements. It wasn't a matter of cutting this down. It was a matter of deciding what you want the story to be. Let it be that thing. I mean, even bring in Richard Pryor. I'm fine. I'm really fine with all of this. It's just the execution is not good.
I wonder how Donner and Mankiewicz would have done it, because they wanted to go all the way to 3, I know, until the Salkinds, canned them.
But that crazy, Superman falling, if what I've read online is to be believed, that Superman falling in love with Supergirl and then Mxyzptlk and Brainiac, it just sounded insane from what I've read.
I think that was an early draft of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And
it
then
just wouldn't have worked. This would have been a better film, honestly. Yeah.
The weird part after this, it wasn't just Superman 4 after this. A year after this, the Salkinds did Supergirl with Helen Slater and Faye Dunaway as the villain. What
a wonderful, wonderful movie that was.
And that movie didn't come out well either, really. Not in any. I mean, I know it has a fan base now, and there are people that love it for its own reasons and love it for, but that movie, that's another podcast itself, that movie.
Yeah. So, Jordan, did you learn anything from this fine film?
Yeah, I learned that if you freeze a lake, you can undo that. You can take that lake and turn it into rain if there's a fire nearby with an oil refinery or whatever it is. I also learned that,
helpful tip.
If you're trying to, helpful tip. If you're trying to break into a computer lab in the middle of the night, it's good to have a big case of whiskey, a whole bar on you, because the security guard might be an alcoholic coincidentally.
Yeah, and bring all the liquors. He may not like vodka. He may like, Crevassier. I mean, bring all of it, all the liquor.
And pose as a door-to-door liquor salesman with a big, giant cowboy hat, and in a plaid, car salesman. And man, you will get in that place. It'll be amazing. You don't even have to get sneaky about it. It'll be amazing.
Just show up with a case of liquor anywhere, and you can get into any place you want to get into.
And I also learned that if you're trying to win that high school sweetheart back over, show her kid how to bowl properly, Show her, don't let Brad get in the way. Brad, that guy who was bullying you in high school,
Everybody's got a Brad.
but you couldn't because you couldn't show your superpowers to everybody,
Been there. Been there.
And give her a ring to show how much you care,
Preferably
because the diamond shows how much you care, right?
The biggest diamond ring that money can buy. I don't know how many carats that damn ring was, but yeah, it was giant and way too big for her hand.
Yeah.
I learned, Jordan, that technology is evil. And
oh wow. Yeah.
Boy, computers are just bad. And if you hit a few wrong keys on the computer, like traffic lights are gonna, across on the other side of the globe are just gonna, start malfunctioning. So be careful, guys, when you're typing on your keyboards with your computers, and don't get too close to a computer because it might absorb you and turn you into a robot host for itself. So that is definitely a problem, guys. So just watch yourself and be careful.
And if you'd like to learn more about computers, you can by going to your local library, kids.
Yeah. The more you know. Okay, Jordan. Well, it's been great talking to you about movies this week.
And by the way, this podcast has been brought to you by Webster Corporation. They're making new technologies better and safer.
We don't know what they do, but they're apparently in coffee beans and oil. So,
and if you would like to learn about computers through the Webster communication, we have this number for you to call at the end of the podcast. Okay. No.
So next time, Jordan, we will meet again and we will talk about a movie probably with fewer robotic hosts of people, probably with fewer high school reunions that are just impossibly too long ago.
Yes.
And
fewer awkward high school reunions as well.
And movies in which Richard Pryor is just terribly underused. I don't blame Richard Pryor. I don't blame anyone. I certainly don't blame Chris Reeve. I mean, everybody showed up, but the it just didn't come together in the way it should.
Hopefully we talk about a movie where Richard Pryor isn't underused,
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I like Richard Pryor, but if we have to start watching Richard Pryor movies, yeah. Okay.
There's a few I could name. No.
All right, Jordan. It's been great talking to you about movies.
Oh yes, but how do we rate this movie? How are you going to rate this movie?
I give it out of 10. Boy, am I enjoying this because it's so bad it's good, or am I just making fun of it? It's got some stuff in there that is funny at times, and Superman. So I will give it a 4 out of 10. It's not as bad as everyone says. It's not that good either. 4 out of 10. Superman shooting peanuts into a bar, like a bar mirror. Chill out, Superman. I don't want to have to tell you again.
I rate this. Damn, it's a tough one. Yeah, because as a Superman movie, it doesn't work really well. Not compared to the first and second one, especially of this series. And then what would follow later on is even more interesting still. Even with the Man of Steel and Henry Cavill and even the Brandon Routh movie is a little more interesting.
I was about to say you're about to leave Brandon Routh out, dude. Come on now. Don't be like that.
Still, even with the mistakes that it has that people criticize Superman Returns over compared to Superman 3, I'll give it a little more props, a few more props. I give this, 2.5. I'll give it 3.5 out of 5 Superman flying S's.
Wow, that's pretty good.
I'll be nice, a little bit nice to it because I do like the scope of it. I mean, Christopher Reeve is always great. He looks a little more rugged as Superman, Richard Pryor's great, nevertheless. I mean, the whole cast is great. It's full of great actors, the whole movie. But yeah, but as a script, as a Superman movie, and as a comedy, like you say, I agree. It kind of it's comedy for the wrong places. It's just like constant slapstick.
Yeah,
you know.
it's a missed opportunity, and the comedy should have just been a little more grounded in the story. But yeah, you know. All right, Jordan. So it's been great talking to you about movies.
Great talking to you, Anthony.
And next time, hopefully, you know, we watch a good movie for once. Let's watch a good movie for once, Jordan.
That is a good idea. Maybe we should watch like a really good movie for once. I don't know. Yeah. This has been an odd movie in the Threequel series. Definitely one of the odder Threequels.
It's hit and miss with these Threequels. It really is. So next Threequel we do will doubtlessly be, or will probably be just as interesting.
Just as odd, yeah.
Hopefully a little more fun than this movie. But this is an interesting movie to watch. It is not boring, and it is not a waste of time for sure. It's what could have been.
Definitely watch it high.
All right. Jordan, I'll talk to you later. And thank you all for listening. We really
appreciate
next time. Till next time. This has been
The robots took my podcast.